Hey, welcome back. This is episode 4. You're here with Joe, and I'm Cam. And today we're going to be talking about sudden wealth syndrome. So,
SWS.
I think it's good information to have because
is it me or you're clipping a little? How high is your gain up?
Pretty high, but it's at the normal setting it's normally at.
Oh, you should be fine then.
But yeah, I feel like this ties into the other stuff we've been talking about because, whether you're manifesting or, you're in cryptos or whatever, there's a good chance that you could come into a, sudden amount of money very quickly. So we'll be going over kind of how to address that and, pros and cons, that sort of thing. But
I love watching those documentaries. Have you seen the one where it's like
lottery
and their lives life? Oh my God. You don't ever think about it. Cause on the normal climb, I'm not rich, but if I was this age and had the level of success that I have now, I would have probably I possibly may have died. I would have had enough money to party way harder than I could have afforded at the time. You know what I mean?
And I think that's a good point because there's a big difference between when you're slowly running the marathon and building up to your wealth, then you have time to get used to, and it's almost like acclimating, right, to temperature or elevation.
Yeah.
Over time, you get used to having that, so you feel comfortable, and it's not a big deal. To all of a sudden go from average salary or whatever to all of a sudden millions. That's where this kind of syndrome can kick in. So
I love this topic, so I'm excited that you picked this.
Oh, nice. So I figured it'd be fun and some good information, and we'll see where we end up and what kind of random things come up, but I think this is good too because it all ties into keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing.
Oh, the Joneses.
Just to give you an idea, I'm sure, Joe, I'm sure at least a few people who are millionaires. In your opinion, are those people really flashy, or are they low key, you wouldn't even know just by looking at them?
So majority are you wouldn't even know they had money. Maybe they have a nice car, but it's not an insane car. And then I know someone who is my uncle's brother is really rich. I don't know, maybe eight figure. I'm just guessing, but he has a really nice car and a really nice house, but even he wouldn't think he had that much money. These are people that could probably afford a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, and he drives a BMW. So yeah, short story long, they're definitely not flashy.
And I think that's something that I at least noticed, especially on social media. Most of the people are flashing a bunch, fancy car, that sort of thing, watches, all these things. They probably don't have money. It's usually compensating, for it. Most millionaires are very low key. And the same thing, people I've met for the most part that you would never know.
Especially if you've had the money for a while, then it's I can afford it, but I don't want to spend my money on that. I don't know, dude. It's it's the people that are stretching for it that are yeah, they get the flash out. I will say though, if I got a shitload of money, out of nowhere, I would definitely buy some stupid stuff.
And that's the point of today is I'm not discouraging people from going out and buy dream things or things you want to have and have fun. But at the same time, got to be cautious. So
what would you buy if you got, sorry, go ahead. I'm getting all excited about the shit that's not even related.
Yeah, I think that's a
good
question. What
would be your first purchase if you got $10 million? Just net 10.
So after dividing the money up to where it's going to be reinvested and earning passive income for me, I would definitely set aside an amount, probably 10%. Where I'm I'm going to spend this to live someplace nice and vacation, that sort of thing. $10 million. Oh,
there's $1 million to play with right there. Right?
It's a tough question. I don't know. I'm not that big into cars. I know a lot of people are set on their mind for cars and that sort of thing, but a nice M5, a BMW is probably for me, something that I would like. Cause it's kind of you got a lot of that power hidden under there that you can do with, but it still kind of blends in sedan. You're not going to screaming out
So
like
you
a
don't
Ferrari
flash
or
it
a
out
Lambo.
when you
We're
go
gonna
like
get tickets.
red interior or something.
No, it would be mellow, like probably like a dark interior, especially having a 3-year-old. Like can't be having nice, crazy like bright color interior.
Oh, they're just like animal crackers
so.
and like apple juice.
Yeah, I would definitely still have something nice on the side to take out, like fun by myself sort of thing, like a 2-seater. But I would keep it. I would have my Joe Dirtmobile, like a 1990 Windstar minivan
with the wood on the side.
Yeah, wood paneling with like paint faded. Yeah, that's what I would normally. That would be my daily driver that I would cruise around in. Yeah.
God. All right.
Keep it low key.
You're gonna explain sudden wealth syndrome. Oh yeah, okay. I'm excited to talk about that. Man, so same setup. I think you're smart to take 90% of it essentially and put it away. So it's like, even if I'm done with this $1 million, I'm set for life. I would definitely. I don't think I'd go crazy because nowadays, like I could imagine $1 million going fast if you were like, I'm gonna buy a Bentley. That's like a quarter of the money's gone, right? So maybe like $100K car, like a Tesla, like a really nice Tesla. And then I think I would do the same thing. I would just relocate. I wouldn't buy a house cash, but I would like use the money for like a generous down payment, get like a really nice place that I could afford. And then maybe you just go on like a really pimp vacation just to like celebrate. I don't know. Yeah. I now that I really think about it, man, I feel you. It's like, what do I even want to spend the money on? I only want the money so I don't have to do anything. Like I want the money so I can just chill. Like I'm not trying to indulge some crazy expensive fantasy.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. So to re-answer your question, the first spend I would be is me and my buddy, the one who got me into XRP. We would rent a yacht, like a nice yacht for probably a week or two, maybe around like the Mediterranean or Asia, South Pacific, something like that.
We got to get you on that show. What's it called? It's like that reality show where they like the rich people like take the yachts and then it's like about the cast and like the captain and stuff.
Oh yeah, like
below deck
or something.
Yeah, that's what you got to do when you get that dough. You got to get a yacht, but make sure you're on that show.
And I know people would think like that's a lot of money. Why would you need to invest in that sort of thing? But you got to remember, like, money can go quick. Look at all the people like, John Daly is, right? Like Mike Tyson, like people probably heard of these people. So Tyson lost like $450 million. John Daly, same way, he's a professional golfer. He lost like $400 million gambling, that sort of thing.
$400 million?
Yeah.
Was he just partying? I know he was a big boozer.
He said he had like a gambling problem. I think he estimated they gambled like $100 million away. But the thing is like, so part of this is the dangers to watch out for is like why you want to be low key is one is like as much you love your family, like extended family, all these people are going to come out of the woodwork. And if you watch these like lottery ruin my life things, this is what happens. This is what happens to these athletes, right? Like they want to take care of their entourages and their families. If all of a sudden you're buying houses and cars for 10, 15 people, the stuff adds up quick. You're paying taxes on all this. And when people say you give them money, like they're going to spend it fast. If you went and gave someone like, oh, here's $500,000, something, that would be gone fist quick. Like then they're going to come back for more, right? So it's one of those things like people wonder why they end up broke in a few years. Look at how many professional athletes that happens to. And then another thing a lot of people don't think about is the scammers that are going to come out.
You're like 19th cousin.
It's not even that. Random people that don't know you. Now you're a target, right? You're easy money. Like as soon as people find out where you live, like they're going to get hurt on your property. Like, have you crash into them or you name it, right?
Ooh,
or like trying
that's
to
a really
you.
Good point to not have like a nice car. I mean, not like drive a piece of shit, but like there are people that are like going to target you just for having a nice thing that's flashy.
Yeah.
I've never even thought of that.
Or they're going to convince you like, hey, invest in my great business idea. And even if the idea sounds great, like people just take your money and leave. So you open yourself up to all this type of drama and problems. So I think that's why low key is really good. And
what is sudden? I'm sorry, I keep interjecting.
No worries. I should have said that from the start. So
because I got all excited about asking you questions, but yeah, like what is like technically is sudden wealth syndrome?
So to sum it up in layman's terms, basically like you feel uncomfortable with the sudden wealth to where you don't feel comfortable around your friends because you feel awkward, you feel guilty that you have this money, they don't, that sort of thing, and it puts a lot of pressure on you, and you like don't know how to function. So one of the first things that's recommended if you suddenly come into a large sum of money is like, don't make any major life decisions for at least the first 6 months. Because a lot of people will start, like you said, they're so excited and they go out and they're like, buy these houses and all these cars and everything. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I spent like half my money all of a sudden in like a few months. But then they start regretting or start realizing like, oh, those things aren't important to me. Like I was watching this one podcast and the guy was saying, he was like, I went out, I had this dream car I wanted to buy, I bought it. And he was like, I was so excited for about a week. And he's like, after that week, I didn't care. He was like, it was just a car to me, like another car, but I had spent the money. And he was saying, when you don't have a car and you get a car, no matter how crappy it is, like your life has changed dramatically. But when you already have like a decent car and then you upgrade to like your dream car, he's like, it didn't really change your life that much. So is that an area that's like important to spend money on type of thing? So I thought he was making a good point with that. And I wouldn't recommend it, even if you got the money. Like if you look at rich people have wealth, they don't go out and spend like cash on a vehicle, right? They wouldn't go buy like a $300,000 Bentley in cash. They would just go out and most likely lease one, because even
like
leasing
it,
your
business.
Yeah, you're paying probably like $2,000 a month. And if you did it for 2 years, what does that end up being? Like $48,000. That's a lot better than, than spending
because then
$300,000 on a car. Yeah. Because then after those 2 years, if you want, you can turn the car and get something else. If you decide you don't like it, it's too flashy. And you don't have to worry about the limited miles you're allowed to put on it, because most people aren't going to drive that around daily anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The first thing I would recommend if you do come into a sudden amount of money is you need to open like a trust or an LLC. You need to put that money in there. So on paper, you look like you have no money.
Can you set it up where like you can't touch it? Like, can you like where it's like, okay, I got 10 million bucks windfall, and like you said it where it's like, I only have access to like X amount per month, no matter what.
Yeah, you can set yourself up like payouts.
And you can do it where you
idea.
like essentially lose control of, like, how would that work? Would you like have to designate a trustee or something? Like, how does that work?
I think you do that, or you could just agree to certain terms, like you're only allowed like to pull out a certain amount every like so many years or whatever, right? Like let's say you hit now and you're like, all right, before I'm 40, the max, if you had 10 million bucks, like the max I could pull out is 500 grand. And then 45, the max I could pull out is like 1 million. 50, the max is another 1 million. You know what I mean? You could tier it so where if you did be like, oh man, I just want to go like have a wild, crazy time, you're only able to take a small amount. But yeah,
and then you have
want.
Safety net. That would be such an interesting psychological thing. It would be crazy to just get that much money all at once, but it would be really, I wonder what it would feel like to, I mean, I don't know, either way, I wonder both, but if you did that where it was like, I am removing my ability to touch this money, but I know every 5 years or whatever, I'm going to get ever increasing amount. So when you're like 55 or retirement age, you're going to get like 5 million bucks. So you're like, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to go like enjoy my life.
And you could pay yourself out increments each month. I mean, like a job, right?
Yeah. I'd probably pay myself an annual salary. Like 200 grand or something.
People don't realize, I think they think you need like $100 million. You do not. Most basic investment companies or like a financial advisor can get you 6% interest like all day. Like it's pretty average, or I would say on the low side. More
for considering what the market normally does. What is it?
Yeah,
like
more aggressive, competent person is going to get like 8 or maybe 10%. So just to make math simple, let's say you're getting 10%. All right. So if you're getting if you have $1 million, that's $100,000 in interest that you're earning, right? So if you have $10 million, you're earning $1 million a year in interest. So if you pay that evenly divided by 12 months, or if you paid bi-weekly, like what is that basically turning out to? $850,000 a month or something like that to equal, $1 million at the end of the year. I mean, unless you're like got a crazy gambling or drug problem or a huge entourage, I don't know. How do you spend that?
Even at 5%, and you could live off it forever.
Yeah. Even at 5%, it's 500,000. And if your house is paid off, like that's your biggest expense. What are your bills? You don't even touch the principal. You're just living on interest.
Oh man.
And then if you have kids, you just set it up to where they can't touch the principal ever. and they just also just keep getting the payments, and then you have generational wealth forever for your family.
That's a really good idea. It's like, okay, this account has to stay at like X balance no matter what. And so it's whatever, X $1 million. And then market's good. Maybe there's extra payout that year. Market's bad, cap the payout.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just things to think about that happens to you. And that's why it's don't make decisions. You should surround yourself with people who are do this for regular, every day. You should have find a good attorney, probably a tax attorney as well. You're going to need an accountant. You're going to need a financial advisor. And it's always a good idea not to give all your money to one person, because you never know, right? You hear scams all the time. Like even professional athletes like get ripped off by accountants and things who are like screened by the NFL saying like, hey, we check these people, it looks good. Like they take people's money. So I would never
saw one of those on American
all
Greed.
of it with one person, because if they duck out on you, like you're done. But if you divide it up to where like maybe they only get 10%, yeah. So what?
Do you have to give them access to the money?
I think
it's kind of how that works, right? Like they have to be able to have some sort of control of it in order to do the stuff that you like to take it off your plate.
Yeah, trading and things like that, right? I mean, they could be siphoning money off the top if you're not paying attention, right? Of what
that's probably a big part of that too, especially people like win the lottery. It's like anyone, and like no shading. I've played the lottery before, but like they call it the poor man's tax or something.
Tax on the poor, yeah, voluntary tax on the poor.
Yeah, it's you're never gonna win. Like, yes, it does happen, but you can't live your life on a hope and a prayer of that thin of a chance. Like, but what I have heard that's super interesting is like Goldman Sachs or these like big ass financial institutions. If you win, they'll buy your winning from you. They'll give you the lump sum, and then they'll collect. So like you become anonymous, like you have an NDA and all this good stuff with Goldman, or who's still around? I was gonna say Lehman, they're done. Citibank, whatever. And then no one's gonna knock on their door and be like, hey, it's your cousin, Christopher Goldman Sachs. So then you get the dough and then you can be anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You can hit up JG Wentworth. How's the tune go?
Oh, dude, do they have those?
JG Wentworth. I forget the numbers in the jingle or whatever, but yeah.
Did they have that in Seattle, or is that when you lived in Arizona?
Oh, I just see the TV commercials. I'm sure everyone's seen them before.
They don't. So, I don't have TV, but when I lived in Florida, that stuff was everywhere. Those like cash settlements for like lawsuits, because everyone sues everyone. But one of the biggest industries in Florida is personal injury, and so everyone wants that money up front, and that company rakes dough because they give you like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, of course.
And then they can afford to just wait because they're a long-standing business, and it counts as like an accounts receivable, so they can actually like add it to their budget in some way, shape, or form, depending on their accounting style. I love those commercials. The guy in the freaking he's got the chick in the bikini, and he's in the or lady in the bikini, and he's getting the convertible. Then there's one like on a bus or something.
The like bus is the one I remember where they're all in costumes.
Yeah. I like that one a lot.
Exactly. I would also I would be careful too, like with the being flashy and like not putting stuff on social media, right? Because you're just going to attract the wrong kind of people.
That'd be a tough one. I would want to that would be the hardest
for sure. I like the Dave Chappelle skit where he's talking about like he would pull up pick a girl up for a date in a garbage truck, and then she's like, I don't see no garbage here, like where are you? What do you think you're doing with that? And then he rips the mask off, and she's like, oh my god, Dave Chappelle. And he's like, yeah, I'm rich, and then like honks the horn and drives off and like leaves her, like just testing her to see. So I'm like, yeah, that would be funny. Some pranks like that for sure.
Part of me is like, okay, I get it. That is funny. And like, I get the reasoning, because I'm sure, especially when you are wealthy, especially if you're famous and wealthy, everyone's just trying to use you. But I also am like, if you're misleading someone, I don't know. I think the trappings of wealth, especially for males, is attractive because it is like so prehistoric, like caveman brain, like provider, like care, safety. Yeah, money and shoes and cars and big houses are awesome, but I think there is a difference between someone who's attracted to like success, ambition, and then being able to be taken care of, their offspring being taken care of, and then someone who's actually just like using you for what you can provide for them. So I'm very on the fence with that like methodology of like playing poor essentially.
No, I agree. I could see that at the same time, but it is like, how can you find out if that person's really into you or they're just pretending to, for the money?
Have you seen that show $1 Million Matchmaker or Millionaire Matchmaker?
Yeah, and then they have like what was it, Joe Millionaire or whatever, where
it's that
they
lady
trick all the
Patty
girls
Stangler
and tell him that he's a millionaire, and at the end of the show they were like, oh, he's a plumber.
Wait, was that the one? There were two guys, right? Like one guy was rich and one guy wasn't, or am I thinking of a different show?
I think there's been tons of different shows that are like that. I
do like shows like that though. It's kind of amusing. And you're like, will they stay with him when they find out he's a plumber? And plumbers make like $75 an hour. They're not poor.
Oh yeah, they make good
They're
money.
Not millionaires.
Electricians, like, yeah, they make good money.
My neighbor's an electrician. He drives a Mercedes. I mean, he's a single guy and he probably doesn't have a lot of expenses, but I think he pulls like 6 figures.
Yeah, you get those union wages and then you work overtime, stuff like that. They make good money.
If you could do any job in the like blue collar, but like a trade, not blue collar, trade job, what would you do?
I don't know, man. So my dad was in the heating and air, commercial for a long time and did that, retired from that. So many of those jobs, they just beat your body up like bad. Because by the time you retire, I mean, that constant like manual labor up and down, up and down, up and down, it would be hard to say. I think an electrician, that would probably be for me, because I could do like a decent amount of things around the house. But when it comes to electricity, like I just do basic stuff like replacing outlets. And I feel like that would be a good skill to have. Plus, we had someone do some work on one of our older houses that was like a friend that someone knew, and they were a commercial electrician, and they just came to our house to like basically do some stuff like in their free time, and they charged us a way cheaper rate than what they would have, but they still made like a couple $100 doing the stuff and like, their off time on the side, and we paid him cash. And it was like, I just went to Home Depot with him and like he picked out all the stuff we needed and I just paid for it. So I just paid him basically for like his labor.
Oh, that's cool
to do it. Right. So it was, I don't know. I think
that is the one area of home improvement I am also eluded by. Like I could switch a light or like a switch, but anything in walls of cords, I wouldn't even attempt. Or anything behind a wall, pipes, cords, I'm out. Like I installed a shower head. That's the extent of my plumbing.
Well, you gotta be careful with that too, because when you get in plumbing and electrical, then the work's gotta be done by a certified person, right? Like if you just do it on your home, it's fine. But if you ever sell that thing and there's an issue, like you're liable for doing that. So
I swear to God, this place is probably like so not up to code that I live in. Like I hung a bunch of paintings the other day. This is many moons ago, and I leveled them. They're perfectly level. They're all like centered amongst each other. And I like step back and they're all like slanted. And it's because the freaking floor is slanted. Mm-hmm. So they were level on the wall or whatever. The ceiling, something was slanted. So they were level from where I was standing, but from like a bird's eye view, it must be the ceiling. Something, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I had to like fix everything. It was super annoying. And now I just like eyeball shit when I hang it up. The worst is when you use command strips, because you have to like rip. That's why I like to just do a nail now, because then you can just do that thing where you just like shim it.
So the trick I do with the command strips is like, because especially renting a place, I'm like, it's not put holes in the wall. It's easier with the command strips. But I'll put the Velcro ones, and I do all of it onto the picture first. So you have like it already Velcroed together, and then I rip the strips off that are going to go on the wall. And then I line the picture up like how I like it, and it looks even and everything. Then I just push it already against the wall, because it's like impossible to try to measure the strips by themselves on the wall and then like put the picture like.
So I do the same thing, and then I just hold it there, because you're supposed to like put them there and then let them sit there for a while. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like I'll just hold it for like push it as hard as I can.
That's what I do. Just hold it for like 30 seconds.
I move my light really quick.
Yeah, no worries. So while he's doing that, I got a quick joke. Why did the shark blush?
About to be like super bright.
because she saw the ocean's bottom. It's a silly dad joke for you there. Uh-oh.
There goes the camera.
Emergency.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, we'll leave this in. We won't edit it out because I think it's great.
And
we're gonna make an Amazon wish list and put
nice
like
sheen
a
on my
little
face.
tripod on there for you.
Dude, that tripod is so it's, you know, when you like extend something and then it like clicks to like lock it in, it only has that on the light's not even pointing at me. It only has that on the bottom part. So the top part is like just held up by like, you know, hope and a prayer. So if you like touch it, it goes like, meow. So I think because it's so old, like whatever the telescopic whatever is like lost a lot of its juice. So it's going to be a mess visually, but at least the audio is crispy.
Yeah, that's good. I told a dad joke while you were busy doing that. So
What was the joke? Oh no,
I'll just have to listen to
go
playback.
back.
Yeah, if you see it.
All right, with best dad joke, I feel like I'm on the spot. I can't think of a good one. Oh, my favorite one is a mushroom walks into a bar, and the bartender's like, "I'm sorry, we don't serve people, you know, your kind here." And the mushroom's like, "What, my kind?" He's like, "Come on, I'm a fun guy."
What's the last part on a person that dies, like on their body when they die?
I don't know.
Your pupils, because they die late.
That was good. That was very good. All right. Fair play. Cool. So sudden wealth syndrome, obviously it's a real thing. And people literally like lose their shit. And man, I wish we had some good examples from that like lottery show where people just like blow their lives up when they get a bunch of money.
Oh yeah, some clips. I mean, if you've seen the episodes, people just be buying ridiculous stuff. So, and in most of those cases, they won like 600,000 or $1 million or something like that. So it's very easy to blow through that quickly. But sorry, go ahead.
No, so here's the most recent. David Edwards, unemployed, living with his parents when he won $57 million Powerball jackpot, but it changed his life for the worse. Oh my God.
Does it say what happened? Why it failed?
Let's see. Oh wait, no, it's just like a brief synopsis. All right, so when he bought luxury cars, 200 collectible swords, luxury homes in Florida and California, 12 million on those. Jeez. Oh, he just spent 12 million, not including the houses. He had a jet and a pilot, 3 racehorses. He bought a fiber optics company and a limo business. That's what you're talking about. People like, dude, you should buy this business. David and his wife became heavy drug users. Oh my God. He became so sick from his addiction that he died in Kentucky.
Jesus.
In hospice at 58. Literally.
Dang.
Dude, look at this guy. He doesn't look like a guy who just like KOs himself. He just looks like, I mean, I don't even know if that's a specific looking guy, but you know, some people you see them and you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Like he just looks like a guy. Like it's just like a nice couple, like normal people. That's crazy.
Well, I mean,
dude.
If you don't do drugs before, why would you start getting into them if you start hanging out with people that do that? So obviously like easily convinced, or I don't want to say manipulated, but whatever type of person you are before having money will just magnify that. So if you're terrible with your finances, you come into a bunch of money, guess what? You're going to be terrible and you're going to spend it all. If you're an asshole before you have money, you're just going to be an asshole with money. It's the same type of thing. Like if somebody's charitable when they're like not making a lot of money or you know, pinching pennies, like they're going to be charitable when they have a lot of money. And in that situation, who the fuck goes and buys 200 swords? I mean,
it's a very odd thing to
your hobby is your hobby, but at the same time, like, don't buy dumb shit, right? And then you got 50 million. You probably had to pay half in taxes, right? So right off the bat, he's probably got like 25 million, and then he goes and spends half of that on luxury homes. and then you buy a jet and a pilot, those have upkeep. Like people don't, this is why you need to hire professional people so they can be like, hey, listen to your, whatever that guy's name was, like Johnny, as your financial advisor, I'm just going to let you know, like this is the upkeep on a jet. This is how much money it costs. And by the way, if you want to buy a jet, there's way smarter ways to go about doing it. Is you can buy a jet and then you can basically like lease it to these companies that fly private, like iFly and I forget some of the other names. They'll pay you monthly to borrow the jet. They do all the maintenance on it. They provide the pilots and the crew for it. And then you can fly anytime you want at like a huge steep discount. That's a way better way to go about doing it because you're actually have now an asset that's paying you income. And after a few years, you've paid off the jet. But yet, anytime you want to use it, you can at a huge discount. So,
dude,
there's a lot of
that thing that your money guy does with that's like such a cool idea that like, oh shit, like no one, those things that like you hear about and you're like, oh my God, why aren't I doing that? Like, how do people find out about that stuff? That's so cool.
I mean, I think just talking to other people and getting ideas, right? Like it's outside the box thinking. Like a lot of people just be like, oh, I'll just put in the stock market and things like that, or like my 401k. But I mean, if you read any of like Robert Kiyosaki stuff, like 401ks are such bad ideas. Like your money.
Why is a 401k? Okay, let's dig into
trapped.
that. Why is it a bad idea?
So you're very limited on like what you can and cannot put it into. Like if you want to move it, say in the instance, what's going on right now, right? Like a lot of people are nervous since January, stock market's declined 20% in value, almost like 7,000 points or something like that. Like in 2008, 2009, when the market crashed, there was a lot of people who had pensions. Like think of the car companies when they had to get bailouts, right? Like Ford. I could be getting these wrong. I think all companies got bailouts in the car company
everyone
industry.
But Ford. Ford's the only company that's never been bailed out, but GM got bailed out for a second time. Yeah, it was almost all of them. Yeah.
So all the pensioners, because at that time it was like, hey, in Detroit, like those were the companies, you know, for 40, 50 years, like you wanted to work at because the retirements were really great. Well, the problem was the retirement funds were now bankrupt because they lost all their money.
Were in the
stocks
of the like, company. Yeah.
Like a 401k type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So when the bailouts came in, the money wasn't to do that, to like help those people out. Those people ended up getting pennies on the dollar towards their retirement. So let's say your retirement fund had like $100,000. Well, now you got $10,000 to basically live off for your retirement for the rest of the years. Like,
oh my God.
And you can't like shift it out of something like say where it's currently going on, right? Like people nervous, hey, the market's going to correct. Say you want to move into precious metals, like, because usually when there's a correction, like gold and silver will go up in price. So it could be a good way to kind of shift your portfolio over to that to prevent from getting wrecked. Well, you can't do that with a Roth, you know, with a IRA. And if you want to withdraw, they charge you like tons of penalties and fees to withdraw early.
Especially if you're not drawing age is 67.
Yeah, they keep increasing it. So I cleaned out my 401k that I had probably 4 years ago.
What?
Yeah, when
Did you pay a penalty?
Yes, when the market hit 30,000, and I knew I was going to pay that penalty, and I didn't care because I'm like, this market's not going to last. Like at this time, it's hyped, you know, overhyped. And yeah, if I would have left it in, you know, it made another, you know, 7,000 or 8,000 from 30 that it went up. But by doing that, I was able to get into crypto,
and that's where you've
levels
been able
before
to
the most recent bull run.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, like. It's anything else. I mean, crypto could go out of business. You know, crypto can be worthless, right? Like we've seen several recently to where, you know, what you have is worthless, but a stock can do the same thing. Company can go out of business, be worthless. I think the best investing strategy is having options. The more options you have available to you at all times that you can move into or like change, the better, because markets constantly change and fluctuate. And when you're basically tied into like a 401k for life, you know, I mean, how many baby boomers were set to retire in 2008, 2009, and then their retirements got wiped out and they're like, well, now I got to keep working.
I remember my grandma, I was talking to my dad about this because he's retirement age and he owned a bunch of rental properties, sold them all when the market like peaked. I'm talking like, and they're not like, these are like rental properties. Like they were nice enough to generate income. Like when you own rental properties, the key is really to do as little maintenance possible, but keep things where they're like, they weren't slums. They're like livable conditions. Everything's works, but like you're not getting new appliances every year. Like they functioned properly. They were like just nice enough. Right. Did a little bit of work, maybe put 10K, 20K into each property, sold them all above market off of what was essentially maybe a 15K, 20K per house investment. Because you can get, a mortgages, especially if you go through like some of these government programs that used to exist back in the day. So off of like, let's say, I don't know, 60 grand made like, I don't have a number, but I know it was an insane ROI. It took obviously, decades to get to that point, but like that's like your retirement basically set at that point, which is super cool. But when my grandma retired, it was during that 2008 recession, and she was on the drawdown. So you're not in like money generating stuff. You're in like protect your money stuff. And I remember her, like my grandpa retired in his 50s. He did really well. He's like a stock guy, but she wasn't a stock person. She was very conservative. And so you're going, oh my God, I'm just watching my live off this money disappear. That would suck so bad. We can ride like this new recession. We're going to ride it out. I'm excited because I'm going to dump money into stuff that's like on sale. But if we were in our 80s, it would be very dicey. Like it would be shitty timing.
Yep. Well, and that's why they say when you're younger, it's easier. You can be more aggressive in your investments, right? Because you have more time to recoup. And as you get older, you're just looking for something that's really safe.
I just want to be like so well off that like I don't need like private planes or Bentleys, but like God forbid a recession hits when I'm 120, fingers crossed that I live that long, not that there's a recession, that it won't matter. Like I'll be like, you know what, I've created enough like generational wealth where the next generation will like pick up where I left off and they'll grow it even more.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. I don't know. I mean, you can make money in 401ks. If you're
getting a free match, I think it's worth it for the free money.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, but only put the match amount.
Yeah.
The max match. That's it.
As soon as you hit the limit, because most companies have a limit of like, hey, we'll match up to whatever, like 3,000 a year or something like that. Once you hit that, don't keep maxing it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And those are just those investments that a lot of people that are like wealthy from their career or from that's smart for them because that's more of like they're people that are success oriented, but they're also, I don't want to say it's the safe route because you have to be like very driven and like sacrifice a lot of personal stuff to be successful in the career world. But I think that's a thing that people like that can just kind of feel like warm and fuzzy about. And if that makes sense.
Oh, of course. And that's what you're told, right? Like most people know like, oh, yeah, you put your money in 401k and stocks and, work your career for whatever, 65 years, and then you retire and enjoy life. Just like, go to college, get your degree, and, you'll start making this amount of money. And, well, times change. So those aren't necessarily the best routes and plans to go nowadays, as many people are in, huge college debt and their degrees are basically worthless, will tell you.
Dude, I'm like, I think I needed a bachelor's degree to like go where I'm at in my career, but I've not used anything I've learned. And it'll be a sad story followed by a nice happy ending. I racked out. I went to a private school and it was like so effing expensive. And I don't know how the hell I was able to sign for those loans at 19, still paying them off. But randomly last year, I'm checking my credit report and I'm like, what? My student loans went down. Not a small amount. Like now they're forgiving 10K, which I still think is really great. It was like tens of thousands of, I think it was like 60 or 70 grand. There was a lawsuit. Yeah. A class action lawsuit against, Sally Mae or Navient or something. And I was like, oh, it like cut it by like a pretty massive margin where I was like, it was like really cool. Like I was like, wow, this is really nice. Like oddly, I had been like looking for a solution from the universe, but not worrying about it. And it was like right in that time when this windfall, and what was cool too is it wasn't forgiven where like you owe taxes on it. It was like the slate was wiped, so it didn't even count as income. No taxes, just gone, like that never existed.
Hell yeah, I love it. Get it, Joe? Woo!
Right,
Manifested
dude,
it.
Oh, it was so sick. I was so happy about that. It's really too something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is I don't budget. I'm very frugal, so just by like just net effect of me, just my personality, I like accrue money. But I was thinking like, if I want to tell the universe that I want more, I need to treat it better. Like I need to budget it. I need to care about it more, not like obsessively in like a desperate sense, but like if I want this thing, then I need to care for it more.
Yeah, I really agree. And that's a good point. I think that kind of ties in with the other shows as far as manifesting. And then with the sudden wealth is one of the trademarks that people have is they feel like with the uncomfortableness is that they're worried it's going to leave, that they'll lose all the money. And again, if you're constantly worrying about not having enough or it leaving, guess what you're manifesting? It's all leaving. And it's the same thing as like you have to feel comfortable with that money to be able for it to come, right? And I know people will be like, well, how can I feel comfortable having that money? Like I've never experienced something like that. But it could be something as simple as like if you have a couple $100 in cash in your pocket to like, I don't know, go to the store and make a purchase or something. If you feel uncomfortable carrying that and you're like sweating and like, oh, like I don't want anyone to know I got this money in my pocket, like you're sending those vibes and that feeling out. So if at those levels you're feeling that at high levels, like when I was a recruiter in the Army, there was this station commander that worked at one of the offices, like in a different location, like further away in Sacramento. I kid you not, he would carry $10,000 cash in his pocket, and he was like really big into gambling, like playing poker and that sort of thing. But he would use that to basically like close people to join, right? Because he would say like, oh, here's a like, you know, recruiter in his office, like trying to convince someone to sign. And then he would come up and be like, oh yeah, we give sign-on bonuses, like bam. And he would just set the like, you know, with the $10,000 like banknote band around it, like on the table, and be like, there, that's 10 grand right there. You ever seen that kind of money before? Like, go ahead, hold it, see what it feels like, type of thing.
Damn.
And that dude was just totally chill, like used to doing that all the time. Like sometimes he would go to events, you know, like these Hold'em tournaments where you have to pay, you know, entry fees like 10, 12 grand. And he was just buying the cash and, you know, he's just comfortable with it. Bad story. Like eventually he went down and he borrowed money from the wrong people and didn't pay back. And anyway,
what happened to him?
Well, he got beat up, and then he went to court basically because he was still in the Army. So whoever this was, like the casinos in South Lake Tahoe, they like took him to court, and they ended up settling and agreeing for like a way less amount. But he had to sell a lot of his stuff, like, you know, his fancy car and stuff like that he had at the time. And then the Army basically took care of the rest, busting him down and like destroying his career. And I mean, he was a lifer at that point, but you can't act wild like that in your personal life when you're in the service. Like,
yeah, you're a reflection of like the entire like Army when you're a service member, essentially. Dude, that's crazy. I told you this story, but I was at there's this really big mall by where we live. It's called Woodfield. It's like the 4th or 5th largest mall in the world. It's enormous. But there's a Rolex store there, and I was like, let's go look at Rolexes. I want to get a Rolex. I can afford a Rolex. I mean, I'm not like I can just buy like 20 of them. Like I could like put it on my credit card and pay it off over time, right? But I felt so uncomfortable, dude, and like I felt like I was like that feeling you get where like you feel like you don't belong there. I felt that, and I like the feeling sucked, but then the fact that I felt the feeling is what made me feel even worse. And like I left and I was like, man, I really don't like that I feel this uncomfortable in this situation. And then it's like, you got to baby step it, or maybe I just need to go to more jewelry stores and look at Rolexes until it doesn't feel weird. But yeah, I can definitely see how if you just get a ton of money all of a sudden, especially if your normal is cash in, cash out, or like being poor, like broke all the time, which is very real. Like I've been very broken many times in my life, you know, when I was younger. It's just a completely different mentality. I think I would love to get a windfall of cash, but I think the slow step up makes it easier to like scale your psychology better.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I don't really know what the answer is to get around feeling that feeling. I think what you mentioned is good. Like the more you're around it, or the more you're around, it's like they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And they'll say all the time, like, you know, if you want to kind of move up from where you are, you want to be around people who are already doing those things that you want to be doing, right? So you can start learning from them and they rub off on you, that sort of thing. I think it would be the same thing, like spending time with other people who are already millionaires. And that doesn't mean like the typical movie sense where you're, you know, it's a house party and there's all these Lambos outside and it's at a mansion and all this. Like there's plenty of people just live in a normal house that are millionaires.
The Millionaire Next Door. That's like that's a book I read.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally like about like if you live in like a, you know, middle class, upper middle class neighborhood, there's a very high probability that like there are multiple millionaires that live in that neighborhood. You just don't know it because they're just like, it's that slow grind to the 7 figures, you know?
Yep. Especially if you live in in areas like California, New York, Chicago, Seattle, like these bigger cities to where, you know, entry level home, you start getting close to like just $1 million to be able to buy a home.
Crazy.
Like most of those people there, they're making several $100,000 a year in income. Like they're probably millionaires. I mean,
yeah, like salary, if you're an executive at like a large company in any big city, you're definitely, it's like 300, 400, 500K a year.
Yeah. And I think the more you just spend time around people like that and you just realize like, they're just a person just like you, like no one's above or below you. And you just start, I think, getting more comfortable, just like being in that environment, like talking about that stuff.
There's got to be a way to like create that. I think that'd be a cool experiment, that like figuring out what those comfort over time tests are. You know, when they like do therapy, what they call exposure therapy on people that have like weird, like you're afraid of spiders, so you have to like look at a picture of a spider, and then like the end game of that fear is like you let a spider crawl on you or something, right? There's got to be an exposure therapy for like building up tolerance to comfort around like luxury and money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a really good way to help with attraction, other than just feeling good. But if something even subconsciously is like that made it very clear to me that like that is a Rolex, right? I mean, it's like I can get a Rolex for like $6,000, $8,000. I don't know. It's like, it's not a life-changing amount of money. It's not like I have that to just like, I'm not buying Rolexes every week, but it was enough of a luxury good, an item that I've like created this like, oh, I'll only have that once I'm at X level. Like, I don't even know if I've defined that level yet, that I think created the comfort. Like I haven't allowed myself to feel like I'm there yet. So maybe creating like touch points in between then and now. I don't know. What do you think would be a good way to like create that comfort with that type of wealth? Because I definitely feel like that was a clear indicator that I have blockers for like extreme wealth.
I think part of it might be like not necessarily that you're feeling like this amount of money is making me feel uncomfortable. It's more of like if you've been disciplined and you budget your life, then it's more so stopping and thinking like, even if I did have $10 million, like, do I really want to spend like $6,000 on a watch? There's a lot of nice watches that are like $200-$300. So I don't know if maybe it would necessarily be a barrier to where it's like the money feels uncomfortable to you. If it's more so of like, do I really need that type of thing?
I love that positive spin, because it is one of those things where now I'm like, well, especially now, because it's not like I can just piss Rolexes, but I'm definitely like, man, I could buy one, but like, man, that would be such a stupid use of my money. In which I like love that, because I always do, like, I love to window shop, and then I'll be like, man, that would be cool, and then I'm like, I don't need another pair of shoes, or I like to look at backpacks. Like, I don't need a freaking backpack. I have like 3 backpacks. Like, I don't know why. I'm like, oh man, freaking backpacks are cool. Like, I'm not going to buy one, but it like satiates whatever. Right. But that it was really more the fact that I felt like I was an imposter in there. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't belong here. And that was where I was like, dude, that's something that I need to figure out. Like, just that like insecurity around, like, I don't know. That's the best way I can look at it. It's like, I felt like I was like an imposter in the Rolex store.
So I think something for me that's been helping a lot, because they'll constantly say when you kind of look at the learning about manifesting and that sort of thing, is like you have to be comfortable to do it and open to receiving. So, which a side note, like a lot of people be like, buying a house is a terrible investment and that sort of thing. And I'm like, I disagree, because so far 2 times I've been like lucky enough to where buying kind of on the dips or the lows and then selling at the highs. So those have been great returns on investments. But so like going through a divorce right now, you know, we had a couple rental properties and we ended up selling those, you know, so we ended up coming out like decent, you know, after.
What perfect timing, by the way. Holy shit.
Which I'm like, both of those were the beginning of this year before the market started tanking. So it couldn't have like timing couldn't have been better. But like putting that money, most of it's been invested, but just having some of that money in savings, even though it's not, I wouldn't consider the amount a lot. It's like, I have my budget for the month and my job covers those things. So this is kind of like a little cushion. So for me, before I would like go to the store and be like, oh, what's the price of that thing? Like, oh, that's kind of higher than I thought. But now I'm just like, I know I'm staying like roughly within my budget. I'm not going out and buying luxury things. So if I go to the store and the bill at Costco is like $110 for stuff that I like needed to get, and maybe like 1 or 2 items that I didn't need to get, like a 10 or a 6-pound bag of gummy bears, which I did buy one of those.
It was such a good deal.
Yes. Things like that. When they run up the register, I don't even look at what the price is, because I know I'm not spending $1,000. So does it matter if it's $95 or $110? No, I don't even care what the price is. And it's not that the money's not important. I don't know if this is making sense, but my mindset is not stressing about it.
Yeah, no, it's
because
making perfect sense.
I'm not out like buying watches or clothes or shoes constantly to where I'm like racking things up. Like, I don't have any debt. So I think that's a good way of the mindset, right? To where I just feel this comfort level. And even though the level I'm at now is maybe like a way lower level than what we're talking about, that's kind of a way of tricking myself, because that's the same attitude you should have if you have millions of dollars, right? Like if you go to the store to buy something and they're like, oh, that's $25, you shouldn't care, right? Like,
yeah,
you were that stressed about it,
wouldn't
be buying it. Yeah, so you don't look at the price, like the bill comes for dinner or whatever. I mean, you may glance at it and make sure like they didn't overcharge you, you know, like put a third plate or something on there you didn't order, but like you don't care what the total is. So I think if people start implementing that in their current life now, like if you have a budget and you know what it is and you're like, all right, I have a like $500 cushion each month after I put all my bills away and like put some money in the savings, especially now with inflation. Like if I go to the store and it's $10 more for my typical groceries than it was last week, who cares? Right? To have that attitude, I think, is what helps make you feel comfortable with that and will help attract. But
I like that.
If anyone's out there, like all the stuff we talk about in the shows, like please put down in the comments of the videos. I know YouTube, you can post comments. I'm not sure if some of the podcast websites you can do that, like Spotify and stuff, but share examples or ideas that people have, or, you know, things that you've been able to manifest. Like we would love to hear them.
That would be awesome. And we should definitely, to that point, do one where we like pool from like what people are saying that's worked for them. This is really cool. And this is exactly what you were talking about. I was at the grocery store the other day and I like went through the thing. I just got a new credit card and I forgot to activate it. So I was like trying to do the Apple Pay thing and I'm like, this thing's not fucking working. I'm like, I wasn't that upset, but I was like in a hurry. Like I like parked the car out front and like threw the flashers on and Abby was waiting for me. So I'm like, I gotta hurry. So instead of, so then I tried that when I realized what's happening. I tried to pay with my other card and the thing is just not working. I like had needed a helper, didn't want to wait. Go to the other thing, pay, use the credit card that is active, leave. It's like $20. And the lady's like, hey, it's working now. And I'm like, oh, I'm good. And she's like, okay, here's the receipt. I just wanted to show you that I voided it out. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. Like, I didn't care. And she could tell that I didn't care. And she was like, oh, well, I would want to know. And I was like, oh, that's cool that I'm seeing, and nothing against this person, but there was a gap in our income. Clearly, she's a grocery store worker, and I have a corporate job. It's like, what? I'm nothing against her. Money's not everything, but that was a good example of like where you like ping certain levels, and then I didn't care about. Literally didn't even occur to me that I might have been charged $20. But to her, it was like, dude, if I get charged with $20, that may have an impact on my life.
And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be concerned and make sure they're not being overcharged or ripped off. Not in any way. Am I implying
good
that?
Point. Because I don't want to get ripped off, but I wasn't even worried about it, so the thought didn't creep into my mind.
Like maybe another thing could be is I know a lot of people, especially if you're, people are more conscious about their spending and their money. They might, especially when you have kids, right? You're like, I'm not going to buy myself anything. Like the extra money I'm going to spend, I'm going to be like, get stuff for my son or whatever. But at the same time, like you should do some stuff for yourself every now and then, even if your budget is really tight. I mean, even if the luxury is like, go get a favorite meal that you like to have and eat it. Like I think treating yourself in that way, but doing it, obviously not like every day, right? Because then you're getting into wild spending or something like that. But my point is, like, if you're at the store and you're like, oh, I kind of want that Altoids 10 or that pack of gum at the checkout, but you're like, it's like $2 more. Like if you're having that mental anguish and like the fight with yourself at the register over something that's that small, like those are the blockers, right?
Yeah. I mean? Yeah. Totally.
So I think,
and I'm just thinking like when this podcast is like popping off and there's a lot of people watching them, I'm going to get like freaking totally like bum rushed by the grocery stores of America union or people that are like, I make X amount of money at a grocery store. Nothing against people at grocery stores. There are people who make good money at grocery stores. It just was evident based on her comment and then probably my wrong assumption about how much money she makes that she was more worried about it than I was. But yeah, I think that's a good example. Just with what you're saying, how if you can just create like I don't know, it's that mentality around like feeling comfortable enough where you don't have to worry, it will attract even more not having to worry.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's comfort level will be different, I think. And another thing could be is, maybe you work somewhere that could be like a fancy restaurant or a business that does a lot of high end business, right? So a lot of the customers that come in are, wealthy or well-off people. Just being comfortable interacting and talking with those people every day, I think could be a big step right there to where
that's super smart. Just having access to those people.
Yeah. Even if you're, a waiter or waitress, like in that environment, but it's somewhere where meals like the French Laundry and I forget where that's at in the Bay Area, but it's similar type of thing, right? Where the dinner bill maybe is like $1,000 minimum for people.
Dude, those waiters make six figures.
Yeah.
That's a crazy high pay job. I made six figures 1 year as a bartender. I only know that because
was your uniform just a bow tie and bicycle shorts?
It was a bow tie and a thong.
Drinks? Oh yeah, I bet you were making.
No, it was like
tips.
At a nightclub, and it was all cash under the table, and so it was just straight, just money, cash. I only know that because like I like went back and I was like, what are my expenses and how much money was I usually getting every night? I spent 100% of it every week, so it's not like I actually had money. I just had like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But like service industry people can bank. I mean, it's definitely a lifestyle that I didn't want to do long term, but it was awesome. We're like close to the hour mark here, and this is something I wanted to talk about, but I think we could even do a more feature length episode. I've noticed that last week I was depressed and I like fell off some of my habits. I wasn't doing like gratitude and I like stopped meditating for several months. And I've generated so much momentum towards my positive attraction that even though I was having like a turd week, I had so much like positive force behind me that like I wasn't able to stop the train, and the universe kept like reminding me. Like literally, like I was leaving, and I texted you about this. And I think I mentioned this in another podcast, but I'm leaving a Starbucks, and I was like feeling like kind of broke, which is ridiculous. I made a big purchase, so you feel uncomfortable, or I did. And I all of a sudden I saw a freaking tricked out Lambo and a Bentley, a wrapped Bentley SUV, and the universe was like, dude, like big picture, like don't forget. Something else happened to me. Oh, I fucking got a $50 check yesterday for
Nice.
like out of nowhere, a check for $50, like from some government thing that I don't even know what it was. So it's like when you generate that much positivity and just feeling good, especially when it's like great gratitude around a specific thing, you know, I'm very focused on like monetary stuff, success, things of that nature. So that's where my like moments of gratitude are like really like juiced up. Like you can't like fuck it up by having like a bad day or a bad week if your net score is like positive overall. At least that's kind of how I'm feeling lately, which makes me feel a lot better when I maybe fall off the wagon for a small period of time.
No, I love your story. I think that's a great point. It's almost like you're filling like a glass, right? And the liquid inside as it gets to the top is like all the positive momentum and things that you've been doing. And if you have an off day, some of it splashes out, right? It's not the end of the world. It's just about staying consistent. Because there's been days so far that this is now the third week I've been going to the gym. And it'll be like, okay, I don't get up at 4:30 in the morning when I'll tell myself I'm gonna wake up at that time, and I wake up at that time and I look at the clock and I'm just like, nah, I want to sleep. But then on my lunch break, I go to the gym instead that day. So it's like I didn't do exactly what I wanted, but later in the day I made up for it type of thing. And I think that's, what people should try. Like if you fall off, don't like beat yourself up and, just give up. Hey, just get back on that horse and do it again, right? You just stick with it.
I love that, dude. And I really like that glass analogy. It's like you're filling it, and then every once in a while you take a sip, and that's okay because you're not chugging the whole glass. You're just taking a little sip. Cool, man.
And I forgot to mention this fact earlier. It's kind of random, throw it in now, but just to give people an idea, because they might think like it's hard to become a millionaire or whatever. But according to a 2016 Forbes article, on average, there's about 1,700 new millionaires a day in the United States.
Day?
Yeah.
1,700?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, obviously, that article was before COVID and hyperinflation, so I'm sure that's skewing the numbers a bit as things have changed. But yeah, I mean, 1 million sounds like a high number, but it's really not. I mean,
not anymore. No.
Think of a lot of the people who live in a house that's like $1 million. So.
Well, cool, dude. We're at the hour mark here. Any words of wisdom to share before we do our sign off?
I know it'll be tempting to really just let loose and while out, and that's okay. You could do that. Just go do it someplace quietly where no one knows you. Keep it on the DL. Like that's, I think, the best advice. And I'm not saying you can have nice things, but like get in a trust to have it in someone else's name to protect you from, fraud, being sued, people coming out of the woodwork after you. I mean, you name it. So it's about protecting yourself the best you can. And a lot of people will quit their job instantly and things like that. And I think that's a bad decision. That's part of the 6 months. Like, don't make any major decisions. Obviously, your job and it's like brutal and killing you, then that's one thing. But if you just keep doing your norm, I think it helps you kind of stay settled and not stress as much. Plus, when you're at work, just daydream about all the stuff that you want to do and vacations you want to go on.
Yeah.
So use that time to start thinking and planning, and you can start saying wild shit at work too. And if you get fired, fuck it. So
here's how I really feel.
I mean, I say some things.
I actually think it's like you have to protect. You have to protect. Like for me, it's like I need to protect myself from myself, and I think that's what a lot of people need. And it's like you're only as strong as your weakest system. So if you have the discipline isn't in I have $10 million, I don't want to spend it. It's the discipline is going, all right, Joe, I know that if you had $10 million, you're going to get a little fast and loose. let's take 90% of it and put it where it's untouchable, but you know you're set for life now. Like that's the discipline. It's in, you don't like buy the cookies and then every time you open the cabinet go, don't eat the cookies. You don't buy the cookies. You leave the cookies at the store. So that's essentially, we're leaving the money at the store. We have access to it whenever we want, but we're not opening the fridge and going, oh, I want a milkshake. You just don't have a milkshake in the fridge.
I love it. That's great advice. And that works. Your analogy works with trying to lose weight and working out as well, too. If you don't buy all the junk food, it's not at home when you got the cravings to eat it. So, and that's important that you know yourself and recognize that as kind of like something that can happen and be like, all right, I'm going to make sure that I'm, getting paid out monthly so this doesn't happen. Smart.
You smart.
Oh yeah, you smart too. So
well, cool, man. This was an awesome episode. I was like 15 minutes in, I was like, man, we're gonna have to stretch this. And then we just like the flow hit. So I'm super stoked and I'm grateful for everyone that's been listening. And I'm gonna get this freaking darkness, like freaking Phantom of the Opera lighting down eventually. The next episode, it's gonna be better.
You gotta come on the yacht with me and Chi. So you gotta come to the yacht party. I don't know how Abby will feel about that, but we'll keep you out of trouble.
Is it a boys yacht only type event?
Well,
you know what I want to do is I want to get golf balls. What do you mean by
boys only?
It's like just the boys. I don't know.
Well,
girlfriends, wives. Like everyone's
yeah,
invited.
no girlfriends and wives allowed, but not boys only. If you catch my drift.
I want to get a driving mat, like a golf driving mat, and hit balls off the top of the yacht.
Oh, nice.
Like that's what I'm gonna do when you have your yacht party. Just freaking whack them into like the freaking Mediterranean Sea.
I like it.
In the middle of a squall. Maybe not that, just a calm
water. Yeah, I like boat.
Yeah,
calm and
just
sunny.
Keep it docked.
Chill.
If I had a yacht, I would never drive it. I would never put gas in it. I would dry dock it in like a wading pool and just be like yacht party. And I would be the lowest maintenance yacht in the world because I would never have to buy fuel and I'd only clean it to have a party.
And don't buy a yacht. They're terrible.
Yeah, don't buy a yacht.
No, I'm serious. Like, and within like 5 years, they lose like 80% of their value. Because
you have to literally.
The people who buy yachts, they don't want a used yacht. There's like no used yacht market. They want like their
not
own.
A big one.
Yeah, they
like
don't want one that's got like champagne stains or like fluids already like embedded into the carpet and the nice fabric, right? They want their own untouched, unsoiled yacht. So.
Unsoiledyacht.com. By the way, I forgot to talk about our sponsor, unsoiledyacht.com. Now, if you have a good website, though, unsoiledyacht.com. Well, that's another episode, though.
All right. We'll see you all next time. And again, if you have any topics you want us to specifically cover, please just put them down in the comments and see what we can do. So have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Bye.